All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. We're recording in the second quarter of Sunday Night Football. Looks like Zach Wilson just Dak Prescotted and stepped out as he was diving for the pylon. We'll see, still waiting on the ruling. But today we're going to talk about all of the Sunday slate. We're going to talk about Week 11 openers and then Broncos-Bills on Monday Night Football. So, Drew, what was your big takeaway from Sunday?
Do we have to talk about the Sunday?
You didn't have a good Sunday.
No, it was not good for me. I've done a decent job of avoiding just the like the complete washout weekends, where everything that you think you have a good read on tends to go against you, on top of the fact that the ball bounces against you when you are correct. But that was the deal for me today. Absolutely getting cleaned right now through this portion of the slate, and it'll shock no one to learn I had Raiders money line at an impossibly good price, but that doesn't look so good right now. It was a bad one for me, and it's a long season. I've had a lot of luck this year, so I can't be that upset. But it's really tilting when you get to the afternoon slate and you just need a couple of lucky bounces, and the Seahawks give up maybe the softest touchdown I've seen all season, up 7 points, and just an absolute broken play. No pressure whatsoever on Sam Howell, and Diami Brown just scampers into the end zone and blows that cover. A lot of backdoor covers across the NFL today, and some backdoor wins. The AFC North, not as clear a picture as I thought it was going to be. This looked like it was going to be Bengals-Ravens sprinting to the finish line, Jay. And now the Browns and Steelers win today. Bengals and Ravens lose. The Ravens-Steelers game was a really, really, really tough one to wrap my head around. I think that under my play on the Ravens of that game was, just not expecting that. It was just kind of assuming that Deshaun Watson, is still not right. I didn't really see anything that challenged that. It's just almost that the running attack from the Browns was the deciding factor in this one. Ravens just uncharacteristically sloppy on defense, and then the pick six to go from a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter to losing that game is really a tough one to swallow for the Ravens, who looked like the better team for so much of that game. Ultimately, that makes the rest of the season more interesting. But outside of that game and some of the weird fluky finishes that we had across the league, it was a bad day of football, man.
Yeah, it wasn't great. I think it was redeemed a little bit by Chargers-Lions, but again, even that felt kind of icky because there was no defense played at all. It felt like a Pac-12 game. But I do think that, and firstly, looks like the Jets have just had 2 touchdowns called back, so maybe your luck is turning, Drew. Everyone will know by the time they listen to this whether Raiders' money line is cash. But on your point about the AFC North, I think that was the big thing today. Well, 2 big things. One, the AFC North, and then the second thing is San Francisco. I think reasserting themselves as the best team in football, and they may not deserve the shortest Super Bowl odds just by virtue of the fact that they're 2 games behind Philadelphia for the 1 seed, and teams like the Chiefs, which are of comparable quality, have a cleaner path to their own 1 seed. But I think neutral venue San Francisco, now that they have Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel back, now that Brock Purdy, who has just been completely dismissed from the MVP race despite lapping the league in EPA and QBR and passer rating on an outstanding team, the fact that he looked right as well, I think that was key. But let's talk more about Baltimore and Cincinnati. And with Baltimore, I mean, that's a horrific loss to not just because, you're 6.5 point favorites, but the fact that they get gifted a freakish pick six on almost the first play of the game. So you're starting up 7-0. And then to also get the muffed punt at the 12, and to also have Cleveland miss an extra point. Cleveland just repeatedly shot themselves in the foot in this game. And at one point, I think Baltimore got into like minus 8,000 on the money line when they're up 14 in the fourth quarter and Cleveland's pinned back. So I think there were 2 schools of thoughts on the Ravens coming into this. One is that they were just an absolute juggernaut and the best team in football. coming off their massive wins. And the other was that, well, they had two really good games, one against Detroit and one against Seattle.
Yeah.
And I don't think Seattle are very good. I think Detroit is good, and that was an impressive win. But this was also a Ravens team that lost to Kenny Pickett, that lost to Gardner Minshew and the Colts. And so maybe they're somewhere in between. So I think that's compelling. And then also Cincinnati, their defense just isn't very good, I don't think. I think it's middle of the pack and well coached. But the fact that CJ Stroud, without Nico Collins, did whatever he wanted for large chunks of that game. And it wasn't his best game, but still, he moved the ball. He did what he wanted. I thought those were the main things out of today. But what did you see from the Bengals?
Yeah, that was their least impressive defensive performance of the season. Lou Anarumo usually has been pretty darn good at scheming up his guys, even if they are clearly deficient in talent. But yeah, I mean, it was not ideal when you win the turnover battle 3-2 and you force a rookie quarterback to 3 mistakes. CJ Stroud with I think 2 fumbles and a pick. Usually that sets you up well if you're an experienced team, an incumbent, the favorite at home, and to still be able to be at a deficit throughout most of this game was pretty shocking. And then to give up the game-winning drive after you drive the field, drop the go-ahead touchdown, elect to kick the field goal, which I didn't entirely understand. I mean, I guess 4th and goal from the 13. I guess you don't really have a choice, but it was strange to see the Bengals from 1st and goal at the 7, move backwards, kick the field goal, and then just completely lay down and give up a 55-yard drive in 1:33 to CJ Stroud. So yeah, the warning sign is very, very, very live about that defense and about their ability to stop the pass. And yeah, I mean, CJ Stroud continues his pretty amazing campaign, and I guess combine that with the result in Jacksonville, and maybe we have to kind of revisit the idea that the AFC South is a done deal, which doesn't make me feel great. Add that to the list of kind of potential disasters from today, week 10 or week 9. So week 10, right? This is week 10.
Week 10.
Yeah, that's how bad I'm spinning right now. I'm trying to wrap my head around where we are. And yeah, the Jags are 6-3, the Texans are 5-4. That is not a done deal because the Texans have the 1 win head to head. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone would circle the second meeting between those two teams as one of the more impactful and important matchups in the AFC playoff fabric. Worth noting that the big winner of today, pretty clearly, Pat Mahomes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll get into all the awards repercussions, but certainly the chaos of, I mean, Burrow's done. I can't hear any more about Joe Burrow MVP. He's 5-4 and his stats suck across the whole season because it's not his fault, but he was injured for 6 weeks and he was bad. So he's done for mine. Almost put a line through him unless he runs the slate, basically. Lamar, who always had kind of a fake case that was relying on all these weird subjective factors that weren't really real, but people just like Lamar and they liked that his team was dominant. But I mean, Lamar has worse EPA per play this year than Baker Mayfield, I believe. So that's a problem. And look, Lamar can get back into it. He's still a top 3 favorite, but that award now, it is going to be a very high leverage Monday Night Football game next week between the Chiefs and the Eagles, because I think the winner of that game is your likely MVP. And it's not going to be as clean cut as that. If Hurts wins, I don't think he's favored against the field, but I do think he will be favored. He'll have Bills, Niners, and Cowboys. This is 3 games after the Chiefs. So, you go 1-2 in those and he's screwed again, but he'll be in pretty good position. And if Mahomes wins that game, then his schedule gets very soft after that. It's like Raiders, Packers, he's got Patriots games, got another Raiders game. I mean, Zach Wilson is carving these guys up as we speak. So I think Mahomes, he'll be in very good position to win MVP. We'll talk about other award stuff like Coach of the Year. I think Dan Campbell now is his last 3 games are Vikings, Cowboys, Vikings. I think if he goes 2-1 in those games, given how easy the rest of his schedule is, he should walk in Coach of the Year. But still a lot of water to go under the bridge there. And your man Mike Tomlin and my man Kevin O'Connell had good days on that front. So certainly,
we're gonna celebrate a second and third place Coach of the Year again. Here we go. Here we go. Just like last year.
The good thing about Kevin O'Connell is that he can take out the man himself. If he beats him at home in week 16 and then Campbell gets blown out in Dallas the week after, then it'll be pretty tough to vote for him. But Lions will be favored in that game in Minnesota, I suspect. Any other takeaways before we move on to the?
I guess just in general, like I thought we had a pretty good read on who the good defenses were, who the good tackling units were. Seeing the Bengals give up 200 yards on the ground, seeing the Ravens give up 200 yards on the ground, like that has me questioning everything. Like I don't understand. And I think the good on you. Your best bet of the Steelers comes through. I think there were two. I think there were two quarterbacks today who finished their Sundays pick. It was Jameis Winston and Jordan Love, if I'm not mistaken, and a lot of similarities between those two men.
Yeah. Listen, as someone who is very invested in Kevin O'Connell, I watched a lot of that Saints-Vikings game. I don't think either of those teams are very good, to be honest. I don't think they're really going to make much noise. Though, Falcons lost, so Saints still right in the box seat for the NFC South, unfortunately. Yeah, I think I think it's Cleveland's defense is still very, very good, despite the injuries that they're dealing with now. I think San Francisco's defense might end up being the best defense of all by the end of it. Now they had Chase Young and seem to fix themselves against the Jags, but plenty of time to talk about the Niners. For now, though, Drew, before we get to the Week 11 openers, Sunday Night Football is headed to altitude this week, my old home, when the Vikings travel to Denver for a battle with Russell Wilson and the Broncos. Coverage of the interconference matchup begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. Wow. Russell Wilson in prime time twice in 6 days.
Do we have to?
Interesting call by God. Put in that spot twice in 6 days, but Broncos playing a bit more competent ball. Listen, if Kevin O'Connell wins that and Jefferson back, then I think maybe Dan Campbell might have some real competition. But anyway, we'll talk about that game in due course. Week 11 openers. Did anything leap off the page to you here?
Well, there's a couple of really high leverage games that are interesting for sure. And we got to start with probably Cincinnati, Baltimore. This opening on the other side of 3, it's Baltimore -4. If you haven't looked,
it's trending towards 4.5.
Yeah.
I don't really get that.
I don't get it either.
Almost 3-point favorites against the Bills a week ago.
This makes 0.0 sense to me. This is Bengals or pass. Did Burrow get hurt in the end stage of this game and I missed it somehow? I obviously have to rewatch that game because at one point I just flipped it off out of anger. But I am kind of shocked because there's nothing that the Ravens offense has shown you really at all this year, other than big rushing effort against the Seahawks, big passing effort against the Lions. Hey, the Lions defense stinks. We know that now. I don't know that you can take any of that away from anything out of those and just assume that they're going to be outstanding and efficient here. So on a short week, and Baltimore really not kind of living up to what we expected defensively. I don't understand why that has moved to the other side of 3. I thought that was going to open 3, maybe 3.5, but to see it 4, trending 4.5 is weird. Pittsburgh probably gets bet at 4 because Cleveland certainly was uninspiring today in victory. I don't think that everything is solved for Pittsburgh offensively. Certainly they still have a long way to go to get to the upper reaches, but at least they're well coached, and you got to like the way they match up against Cleveland every time they've played in the last handful of years. So Pittsburgh probably is a decent look. Arizona, interestingly, has not been adjusted aggressively, even in the with the return of Kyler Murray. We didn't mention him in the reactions to today's action because did anyone watch Cardinals Falcons. It was an exciting game. It came down to the end. Desmond Ritter's back. But Kyler Murray, he played like Kyler Murray that we know. And it's surprising to see that he is a 5.5-point dog on the road at Houston. I do not think that the adjustments have been measured and correct on Houston. Like at this point, this has got to be a sell high for those guys. There's some other absolutely absurd games like, Chargers, Green Bay. Can we relegate one of these teams so we don't have to watch them anymore? That would be perfectly fine with me. I think Detroit getting 10 points against Chicago is amazing. I think San Francisco laying 10.5 against Tampa Bay feels right. Kind of intrigued by this Philadelphia, Kansas City market as we go through the week to see if it gets to 3, because I think it should be 3.
Okay. Well, I hope you're right, Drew. So I'm going to need the Chiefs like no man in America. To me, a lot of these stand out as being wrong.
Okay.
Cardinals shouldn't be. I don't think they should be 5.5-point dogs against the Texans.
No, that number should be inside 3, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it should certainly be closer to 3. I think that the Cowboys should frankly be bigger than 10-point favorites against the Panthers. I think the Niners should be bigger than 10.5-point favorites against the Bucs. I think even with what Minnesota showed today, I think the Broncos should probably be bigger than -1.5 against the Vikings, just given the way that they've been playing lately. I think that defense is – all of the numbers around Denver are so skewed by Devin Achane and Raheem Mostert running for 7,000 yards against them. I think they're better at this point. And then also we'll see what happens to the Jets line at the conclusion of this game. But Bills only -6.5 home to Zach Wilson. That seems a little low to me as well. So I think there's more here than usual, but certainly the two main ones to watch are Bengals-Ravens and Eagles-Chiefs. Bengals-Ravens, to be fair, a little less consequential because we could have had MVP stuff on the line in that game. Now there's not really. It's more Burrows go on Lamar and win that game to get right back into it. But he's not a top 2 favorite now, I would have thought. Yeah,
we've gone from an MVP showcase to who's going to finish second to the mighty Steelers.
Yeah, I don't think the Steelers are.
I don't either, but they keep compiling wins, Jay. I'm going to bet them again this week. This is an absurd line. Like, this should absolutely be inside 3. The Browns are not 4 points better. No, I mean, it's 2.5, depending on how you want to give them home field, I guess. But I don't know, man. They lose Quan Alexander to an Achilles. Maybe he's a key part of that defense. But
I think if Fitzpatrick comes back as well, you'd think he probably would. Given his reports from this week. But I do think with Cleveland, the one thing is that I know he didn't look great and he threw a ridiculous pick 6, but I thought Deshaun looked more athletic and healthy than he has for most of this season. He made key plays with his legs. He was zipping in passes. There was one, I think, a 2nd and 15 late where he just zipped in a pass to make it 3rd and 1 and manageable. I thought that he still makes mind-numbing decisions at times, but athletically, I thought that, and he's throwing deep balls as well, even if they weren't connecting, they looked right. I thought that was encouraging for Cleveland because he, to me, looked a lot more like the guy who destroyed the Titans back in week 3 or 4, whenever that was, than he did the guy who looked, completely broken at times against teams like the Steelers.
Myles Garrett got onto the stat sheet today. Did you see Roquan Smith had 21 tackles today? If they just win that game and play good defense, it's like he really is in the discussion for DPOI. And I don't think it's going to happen now because of how lackluster that team was in stopping the run. But did the DPOI race come into focus at all for you with what you saw?
I think it's Garrett pick against the field at this point. The fact that they had that type of game. Now, I'm not sure if he really gets screwed by this. I think people are smarter than this at this point, but it doesn't look great that they gave up 31, but 7 of it was on a pick 6 to Deshaun, and then another 7 was on a muff punt. Right. So, it was a very good defensive performance against the MVP favorite, at least the guy who was finishing first on all the MVP midseason columns. So I think that was, and also like he made key plays down the stretch. He had 1.5 sacks. They won the game in Baltimore and they have such an easy schedule remaining now that they are, heavy favorites to make the playoffs. Watt had 1 sack. I'm not sure Parsons registered a stat today.
Did he play? I didn't watch that game, so I can't tell you.
He was playing more like his traditional kind of year one linebacker role for stretches. So I don't know what's going on there, but he certainly lost ground. So I ultimately think it's just going to be Garrett, Parsons, or Watt. And I think Garrett made up a fair bit of ground, created a larger lead against those guys today. Okay. And he was the incumbent leader, and I think he just expanded that lead.
Okay. We'll see if Crosby can do something, hopefully, to save this game.
Yeah, well, it would enliven my prediction that Crosby will get to like 8-1 after he sacks Zach Wilson 3 times, and then be back out to 30-1 after the Dolphins and Chiefs light these guys up, because this is the best Zach Wilson has looked since the last time he won Sunday Night Football. Moving the ball at will. All right, before we get to Broncos Bills, a reminder that Bet the Edge isn't the only show every weekday during the NFL season. You can also check out the Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Barry, Connor Rogers, and myself. It airs live on Peacock at noon, re-airs at 4 p.m. Eastern, and is available on our NFL and NBC Sports YouTube channel, as well as wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Bills -7, home to the Broncos. Bills lose this game. They'll have the same record as the Indianapolis Colts at 5-5, stunningly. The total is 47.5. This line was higher at a point and is now down to 7. Mike Hyde is out. Damar Hamlin's still -105 to win comeback player of the year. I think he's going to play, given that Hyde and Benford are both out. May even play some defensive snaps. What do you think of this game?
Well, considering I've lost everything I bet this week except for Lions, -2.5, by the way. If you got in late, you pushed. So yeah, you could have tailed all of my action that we talked about on these shows and be 9-1 or something like that. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's horrific. I bet the Broncos 7.5. Mark is with me.
Yeah.
So I think if you're listening to this now, find some alt spreads on the Bills and go to town because that's sort of the way my week is going. But the handicap is straightforward. The Bills defense is still an absolute disaster. And now you are adding more important pieces who are going to be unavailable. And that has to matter. Denver's coming off of, I think a pretty impressive win in a bye. And then, they are as healthy as they have been all season defensively. And I think that definitely should matter here. I think there are still questions about exactly who the Bills want to be offensively. Some of the injuries, particularly to Dawson Knox, has kind of upset a little bit of what they were trying to do in terms of, kind of changing the looks that they were giving you so they would be less predictable. Well, they've tacked back into, okay, well, let's just, be 11 personnel, throw, a little bit of design run for Josh Allen, but not anything close to what we've seen when they've been their best. And your point's fair. Like if the Bills lose, they are tied with the Colts. But you know what else? The Bills that were 13 seconds away from going to the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs, they started 7-6. So it's, the Bills, I think, the guys, the in the locker room, are they panicking? Are they pressing? Probably not. I think they just want to get a win here. And ultimately, I don't see them matching up especially well against the Denver team that's at full strength now defensively. So I think this is going to be a closely contested game. I think Bills ultimately will win, but I think it'll be close. And I took the 7.5 points with Denver, hoping that we land inside 1 score.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I think with the Broncos now, I'm not convinced the Steelers are better than the Broncos. I think those are almost the same level of team at this point, where the Broncos now, it's a solid enough offensive line. Ross has been a perfectly average middle of the pack quarterback. And in Sutton, Judy, and Mims, they have okay, and Javonte Williams, they have okay weapons. So it's an okay offense. And then on defense with Surtain and Simmons in the secondary, and they're getting it past my man, Baron Browning, provides an excellent pass rush when he's out there. So I think it's just a solid team at this point. And the Bills, obviously, their offense is significantly better. I'm not sure the defense is materially better than the Broncos at this point, the way that they've been playing, and also with the injuries that they have now, not just missing White and Milano and Daquan Jones, the guys who are out long term, but also now missing Micah Hyde and Christian Benford as well, who was effectively their second, third cornerback, and now he's going to be out, and relying heavily on Rasul Douglas and Dane Jackson. If either of those guys go down, then they're in big trouble. So I think that the Bills will win this game, but I would prefer to be on Denver +7. One thing also with the MVP chat, one thing I think that today did, and an underrated thing, is that it kind of brings Josh Allen a little bit back into the fray, because his stats quietly are elite. Like, he is, I would say, a lot of people who are analytics focused and don't care as much about team record, which I don't really think you should, but everyone does. They would say that Josh Allen is the MVP to date when you look at his numbers in terms of EPA per play and QBR. So it's just that his team has such a stench at the moment. But if he wins, all of a sudden, 6-4, Zach Wilson next week, likely 7-4. They have a brutal schedule after that, to be fair. But the thing about, like, with these awards, like, stench goes away when you have a big win. Like, Brock Purdy has a stench right now. Brock Purdy beats Philadelphia in 2 or 3 weeks whenever they play. All of a sudden, all the vibes are back, and he's just lapping the field in every stat. So I would always fade that kind of arbitrary snapshot in time sentiment.
We're back in the Brock Purdy MVP discussion, surely. If your commentary about Josh Allen is, I think, spot on, but same for Brock Purdy. I mean, he had did he have the most total EPA today generated by any quarterback?
He used 0.5 EPA per play off the top of my head. So yeah, I'm guessing.
Yeah, 0.5, 15 EPA added. He was already leading. So it's going to take a heroic effort for Allen to catch him. And you know, with Mahomes on bye, he's padding his lead. Like, this is crazy. I mean,
before today, I made it 23-1 that the Niners would run the slate and finish 14-3. So that is, becomes shorter now that they've won that as favorites. So top of my head, I don't know, I can't remember what the money is, but 14-1 now, 15-1, that type of range, I would guess. So, I mean, if they do that and they end the season, by the way, on another, it's not going to be quite 10 games. It would be a 9-game winning streak after they ended last year on a 10-game winning streak. Then I think that Purdy would surely be live, even if people don't think that he's that as good as the other guys. The fact that, he's been amazing this year outside of 2 stretches of play immediately after concussions. One proven concussion, one I'm speculating that it sure looked like a concussion. So I don't think he's dead by any means. I think and the odds do not reflect this. Right now, Purdy's odds are double what Joe Burrow's odds are. I'm sorry, I just can't have that. Brock Purdy is more likely to win MVP than Joe Burrow at this point. I'm not sure Purdy's that much less likely than even Tua to win MVP, given that Tua also has question marks and his stats aren't as good and his team isn't as good as Purdy's. So I think it's Mahomes and Hurts are now your tier 1. Lamar might be tier 2 by himself, and then it's Allen and Purdy and Tua. And I think that, and Dak Prescott as well, by the way. Dak Prescott not to be written off.
I don't think Lamar's tier 2.
Well, he shouldn't be, but everyone loves Lamar, and his team is still really, really good.
He got the honorary midseason MVP, which means he's now done. Yeah. We gave him the imaginary one. So
to be fair, today Lamar threw a 100th percentile beautiful deep ball flick of the wrist to Keaton Mitchell, hits Keaton Mitchell in the chest in the end zone and just bounces off. He just drops the pass.
I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah. And then there is another one going the opposite direction, deep down the right sideline. Lamar unleashes a bomb to, I want to say Zay Flowers, may not have been, but it was wide open walk-in touchdown, and Lamar just missed the throw. Now that one was on him, but if he connects with those 2 passes, he's like plus 190 to win MVP in the market right now, and they've
Yeah,
won
but
that.
instead it was the opposite. Everybody wrote him in as midseason MVP, and then he went out and lost as a favorite. So everybody now has egg on their face for saying that he was the midseason MVP. So it's over.
I think the good thing about that, if you are a Lamar backer, and I do have some Lamar, and I didn't feel good doing it, but I just thought that given the team and how everyone gives him a massive boost because they see him as the alpha omega of the offense. Meanwhile, he's probably got better weapons than Patrick Mahomes. I think that the good thing here is that like he gets to wash away the stench in 4 days in a massive game against the Bengals. He balls out in that game and they win. Oh, Lamar Jackson, he's all the way back. You forget about this, and all of a sudden they're 8-3 and in the mix for the 1 seed again, and so forth. But yeah, we will see. Anything else on Bills, Broncos, or the National Football League before we close out?
No, let's please salvage my week. Please salvage my week, Denver. Please do not blow.
You want to talk Clippers? You want to talk anything else?
Oh, let's we could delve into some franchises and some more miserable entities than the way I feel right now. Happily, yeah. The Clippers, my God,
they'll figure it out, but it's
it's
not great. It's not great at the moment. James Harden hit a big catch and shoot 3 today. It was almost like looking into the sun. Didn't really know.
The Raiders are dropping pick sixes as we speak, so I have no interest in anything right now.
Okay.
This
All
is
right.
killing me.
Well, we'll go to sleep. We'll wake up better, bounce back. But for now, don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those of you watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. And also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, we'll see you tomorrow.